Hello, my name is Rebecca Powell, and I'm going to be talking about the first experience administering and scoring the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scales. There are several forms to choose from depending on the respondent and other factors such as time and availability. I chose to administer the Parent Caregiver Comprehensive form for a 14-year-old female, as the parent was familiar with the Vineland scales and a teacher was not available during the summer break. In general, I found the instructions to be easy to follow and scoring guidelines to be helpful in scoring. The age tabs provided were helpful in finding a starting point, and identifying the basal and the ceilings became easier as I progressed through. I found that as I moved through each subdomain, I was becoming more comfortable with the process. It became more rhythmic, allowing us to move more quickly through the questions with more ease. The child is developmentally within age range and a little older, which I think contributed to the simplicity of the administration and the time limit. I really liked a lot of the options that the Vineland offers as far as the use of the different scales depending on situation. They have short versions and comprehensive versions. You can do it on the computer or in paper form. And you can also do it through interviewing face to face or a teacher form or parent caregiver form that you can guide them through. I think the manual did a great job explaining the differences between the different forms and highlighting the benefits of each one. Some other things I really liked about the Vineland is the scoring criteria was included within the form itself. Scoring guidelines were provided prior to the scales. I also like the additional scoring guidelines embedded within each domain and examples that were given with particular questions. I like that a comment section was provided for each subdomain so that I could take notes. And the overall layout of the subdomains made it easy to follow and transition from one section to the other. I really liked how the score report was built on itself and elaborated on the scores. It guided me through the analysis to make comparisons and identify significant strengths and weaknesses. It also helped to organize the data to find discrepancies within different domains and subdomains. The things I did not like were more along with the manual itself. I did not like that the manual appendixes had been removed to save space. They are available online. However, I didn't have access to that, and neither did my diagnostician at the time. I was able to track down somebody who had a copy of the appendixes and have them sent to me so that I could do the score summary, strengths and weaknesses analysis, and the pairwise comparison difference comparison. It was inconvenience as I assumed that it would be included in the manual, as did my district. It was included before, and so it made the process a little bit more frustrating, but overall I was able to get it done. I also felt the manual did not give very thorough instructions on the scoring, especially as a first-time administrator. I would have benefited from examples or outline instructions such as numbered steps or bullet points. I found the administration portion to be fairly easy to complete. I am familiar with tests that are similar in structure. I'm also familiar with establishing the basal and the ceilings. Calculating the raw score was a little different than my previous experiences with other tests, but I found it to be pretty self-explanatory. I did not have any estimated items, but I understood how to calculate them out if needed to. Again, that was pretty self-explanatory and easy to follow. The first part of the scoring form I found to be relatively easy as well, and was able to complete this portion pretty quickly. The part that I found more difficult was with doing the strengths and weaknesses analysis and the pairwise difference comparison. These sections I found more difficult to follow, especially with the critical value sections and the base rate sections. I had to reread the manual a few times as there was not very much information on this portion, of the scoring form. I did have a visual that was provided in the manual I was able to look at and then compared that information with the instructions and the data that I had. I then compared that with the appendix for the strengths and weaknesses analysis and pairwise difference comparison, and was able to figure it out. But more instructions within the manual would have been helpful in completing that in a more timely manner and with a little bit more confidence. I had to recheck it a few times before I felt comfortable with how I filled out the form. At this point, I feel like I have learned a lot. However, I have yet to write the report or use the scores to make any interpretations at this point. I'm still not sure about the specific meaning with the critical value and base rate. I understand it provides a guide for determining statistical significance and pinpointing strengths and weaknesses, as well as significant discrepancies between domains and subdomains. However, I'm not understanding if these values provide meaningful value or if this data provides meaningful value within themselves. Do they tell me anything in particular about the student's performance, or are they used more as like comparative data to draw meaning indirectly? I assume that as I continue through and reread the manual a few times and apply that, these questions may be answered. I'm not sure. I also have questions about choosing the confidence interval and how that affects percentile rates and or ranks in the data. There were some information provided in the manual, and the authors did advise using 90% confidence. However, they didn't elaborate to explain why or what effects it had on the overall score summary. The Vineland gave me a lot of information over various adaptive behavior skills within a lot of different domains. It gives a comprehensive picture of the child's adaptive behavior skills in different environments and from different resources. I can get information from teachers and parents. I can do interviews and get more in-depth data as well, which I found very appealing about the test itself. The Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scale in score form evaluates adaptive behavior in comparison to age-equivalent norms, the student's own performance, and it identifies specific areas of strength and weakness. This tool can contribute information of value to identification of qualifying disabilities, educational planning, and placement decisions.